Welcome back to the Unaffiliated Mind, and today we're going to be discussing a specific clip in regards to this elected official that I came across this interview that he did, and it was shocking. But then again, I guess I could say is that within our political climate nowadays, nothing should be shocking, I would say. But I think for me, from the perspective is that I look at a Senate Democrat like a John Fetterman. I mean, from my perspective, he's very common sense approach, doesn't get into all the identity politics. And, it gives me some type of optimism within our political sphere, for that. But in this instance, Virginia Senate Majority Leader Scott Surovell was interviewed by Nick Minogue about the murder of Stephanie Minor by the hands of an illegal alien. And you'd be surprised, or maybe you not surprised, by, who he blames for this unfortunate, preventable situation. Let's dive into this clip.
Well, the Stephanie Minter murder happened in my district, and I've heard from people in my district. They're very upset about it. They're very upset that somebody got murdered in my district and by a violent, undocumented immigrant. And the guy who murdered her is exactly the kind of person the Trump administration should have been focusing on getting people out of this country instead of going after poets and veteran nurses. And the 75% of the people that ICE has gone after don't have criminal histories. If the Trump administration would focus their efforts truly on violent, undocumented immigrants, then maybe that wouldn't have happened. And so I think that they've got the blame all misplaced. If they would just focus on doing what they promised in their campaign, maybe she'd be alive today.
You have to be somewhat delusional or ignorant to the facts to believe just that. And I believe that it's a little bit of both, as far as like him being ignorant to the timeline of events that kind of led up to this point. And then also to, him virtual signaling to his base in regards to, this particular unfortunate event. But let's just say this, let's get to his premise here. If he wants to use that argument that, Trump should have already deported him. But I will push back to this senator's proposition here, because this illegal alien didn't begin his, criminal career until 2014. Oh, by the way, he entered the United States illegally in 2012. And by the way, if you want to look at everything, who was the president during that time frame? It was President Obama. So by your framing here, or by the standard that you're setting here, President Obama should have already deported him after this illegal alien began to commit crimes within the United States. That should have been a clear indicator. Now, if you want to push back and say is like, hey, it's all about whataboutism at this point in time, using President Obama. It's like, no. We're using the precedent that's setting here, and we're going back to other clear indicators that would hold that same person to that same precedent, regardless of what a political party they're a part of. But to add on to that, though, is that in 2020, under the Trump administration, an immigration judge decided that, hey, Abdallah Jala needs to go. And ICE lodged a detainer against Jala in 2020 on top of that. So we have this interesting situation to where the facts are being laid out in front of us. Which one are you going to, cherry pick or choose to stick to? And do you have principle here in regards to how you're setting this precedent? But let's get back to this clip.
Do you think Fairfax County officials should take some responsibility for this? The Fairfax County Sheriff doesn't honor ICE detainers, requires judicial warrants, which you can't get, according to several legal experts, because this is a state charge. And you have Descano, who drops charges against this guy. I looked at his court record in Fairfax County, more than 40 charges, most of them dropped. Do you think they should take some accountability?
Right. Well, I don't know what the history was about why they got dropped. A lot of times in cases like that, they have problems with witnesses showing up to court and they can't make their case, and cases have to be dropped. So I don't know exactly what the history was with all that. With regard to the sheriff's role and all that, the sheriff follows Virginia law, and she advises ICE every time somebody's arrested. ICE knows that somebody's in jail. They know when they're going to get released. And ICE can't get their act together to come and pick people up because they're busy going after poets and veteran nurses and these other priorities the Trump administration has them all sent off to Minnesota and these other states instead of doing their job. And I think the Trump administration needs to do what they promised.
But this particular case, ICE is requesting this specific individual to be handed over to them by the Fairfax County Sheriff, and in this specific instance, the sheriff won't unless they have a judicial warrant. What do you make of that?
Why isn't ICE there when the guy's released? They know when he's going to get released. Why doesn't ICE come and why aren't they there to pick him up? Because
The sheriff doesn't tell them.
If I was a voter in this particular county here, and this was my elected official, giving his, I guess, his thoughts or opinions about the matter, and not really looking at the facts, or even after I had read through the facts and saw everything I saw in this instance, and this elected official continued to tap dance around the responsibility and who to blame in this situation, within his own party. Like, he doesn't want to touch anybody within his own party, standing firm in that regard, and just go to the default Trump. Like, that is the default answer within everything. Trump is bad. Trump did this wrong. It was all his fault. I would take that as an insult to my intelligence, because you mean to tell me is that throughout the timeline of Abdul Jallah, you can't at any point in time pinpoint where someone within your own party, these elected officials, made a mistake? Like, that would be a red flag to me, obviously. But, even getting to the fact is that, Stacey Kincaid, which is the sheriff of Fairfax County, since 2018, she has restricted her communications with ICE, and she ended her advance notice policy with ICE a few years back, which is crazy to me to think about that. But also in 2018, she began to mandate judicial warrants. Like, that was the requirement that she had. So I guess you could say she was ahead of her time within the county that she oversees in regards to law enforcement. It's just interesting to kind of see that. But to play politics with the law and these dangerous criminals with your community is wild to me. But it makes sense though when you look at illegal aliens within Virginia, like, because there's a lot of them. Apparently, according to a few statistics, there's roughly around, they said, between 258 to 361,000 illegal aliens. And guess what? They're all concentrated within Fairfax County. So take that information and apply it to the bigger scheme as far as like what's going on with this conversation or debate about illegal aliens and U.S. citizens. But I digress.
I'm not certain that's the case. That's not how the sheriff has described it to me in terms of how she manages the process. ICE is advised, to my understanding, when somebody's going to be released, just most of the time they're not there to pick anybody up.
So this talk about a judicial warrant, can you provide a roadmap on how ICE would obtain a judicial warrant from a state court, general district levels? They can't, right?
They're not. I don't think they're talking about obtaining warrants from state court. They're talking about obtaining federal warrants.
So if they don't have a federal charge, how do they get one?
My understanding is that ICE can go get judicial warrants, and we've had several attorney general opinions that have said that unless it's a judicial warrant, it's unconstitutional, it's illegal for the sheriff to hold somebody past the time they have legal authority to hold them. So I think we had one sheriff that actually got sued for holding people using non-judicial detainers and had to pay money for it.
Yeah, so there is a debate, and it has been for a long time, about can you hold people 48 hours after their release date.
Yeah.
This is not what ICE is requesting. They're requesting the governor, they're requesting the sheriff to notify them when he would be released. Now, he is facing murder charges. I'm sure he's not going to get out anytime soon, but they're just asking for that notification. And the response ICE is receiving is you have to go get a warrant. So how would ICE go and get one if this is a state charge, not a federal?
Well, presumably ICE is now aware for, I don't know, the second or third or fifth or 10th time that the guy is present in the United States. I would assume they could get some kind of a charge to say that he's illegally present in the United States to go get whatever paperwork they need to get a warrant to get him into their system and removed.
That's rich. The reporter's good because he walked him into the framing of that question. He lays it out. It's like, well, how would ICE go about, getting that judicial warrant from a state court? But I missed this in some of my earlier videos whenever the first mention of getting a judicial warrant, I myself was focusing mainly on the state judicial warrants. I wasn't focusing on the federal judicial warrant and that particular process within everything. But to Senator Scott's point here that he just admitted is that he said that they can get something for Abdul in regards to him being illegally in this country. They have. They got it from an immigration judge. He gave an order of removal. Like, what more do you need at that point in time? The immigration judge is giving that order. But the most damning part about it is that ICE has been trying to work with the sheriff and to get him deported, but she wouldn't. But she wouldn't work with him. You know, I know in one of my prior videos, I focus on Descano, the prosecutor in his cases, and yeah, I focus on that layer. But it goes deeper. It goes deeper to the Fairfax, sheriff county. It goes across the board within Virginia and how they're setting up these sanctuary state, policy. And yeah, it's just very interesting to see that. It's a little disheartening because you would take this chance on your community, because a lot of these illegal aliens that may be coming over, you don't know about their past. You don't know what type of criminal record they have. You don't know anything. You don't know anything about them. And that's not to classify every illegal alien as some type of, murderer or criminal or something of that magnitude. I'm not saying that at all. That's not my argument. I'm just saying is that there is a part of this immigration process that needs to be respected and upheld. And this is the reason why, so that you can definitely try to avoid these situations from happening. Now, this has layers of evidence as far as like how this could have been prevented, but yeah, it's unfortunate. It really is. Let's finish this up.
So this back and forth, does it make your residents safer? I mean, you have a sheriff, you have a Commonwealth's attorney, you have a board of supervisors, you have a governor who doesn't want to cooperate and work with ICE. Does this make Fairfax County residents safer?
The sheriff follows state law when it comes to ICE, and she follows federal law when it comes to ICE. The Trump administration chooses to put their resources into tracking down and finding people that going after poets and after nurses and people like that, or chasing down people without criminal histories, instead of focusing their resources on people who have violent felony convictions. That's where the focus should be.
Well, ICE says they've lodged detainers against this man before. Just last question. They launched a detainer against this man before. So you say they're focused on poets and everybody else, the gardener, whatever. They're focused on this guy who's accused of murdering a woman, and they have been focused on getting this guy before, but they're saying the sheriff just never notified them about his release date.
The Trump administration ought to do more than just issue a paper. They ought to use their people to go and find violent, undocumented immigrants instead of going after people without criminal histories, which is what they've been doing all around our state. They went after people in a hypothermia clinic in the very first Trump administration, getting people walking out of a hypothermia clinic instead of going after violent, undocumented immigrants, which is what
That, I would say this, the poets and nurses line is definitely his go-to political talking points, because he kept using it over and over again, try to pivot, divert, or virtual signal to his base is that, hey, I'm still fighting for you guys. What the Trump administration did to these individuals wrong, and all that type of jazz. I think it's interesting that the senator mentioned that the Trump administration should go find these undocumented immigrants, and not the poets and nurses. And he, again, there's so much information there that gets ignored. And if you're an individual and if you're a constituent that's not really looking into these cases and taking the word of your elected officials without really doing your own research, it creates this fear of just information that is just regurgitated and not really looked into more. For him to not even address to where there were missteps within the timeline of handling Abdul Jalal, that only progressively just got worse. Like, it seemed like he was like, oh, I can get away with this? Bet. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And it just got worse. And some of the cases, that he has, were egregious, And he still was able to just go around and just do his own thing. Like, that mind-boggling to me when you look at it. But get at me in the comments. Let me know what you think. Please be safe out there. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share an unaffiliated mind. Until next time, deuces. Yes, sir.